Hello, I'm John Klobuchar with InEight, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest webinar in our Field Execution Management series. Today's webinar is titled, Making the Jump to Digital Forms. Our presenter today is Brandy Hefner, who is Product Manager for our compliance product. Brandy's been in the construction industry for over 20 years. For the past 8 years, she has driven the development and implementation of tools to help manage safety, quality, and environmental compliance programs. Brandy's current focus is delivering solutions that allow InEight's customers to accurately and efficiently design, create, and manage digital forms to break the inefficient cycles associated with their paper counterparts. Now, if you have any questions as you watch today's webinar, please submit them in the question window on your screen, and Brandy will do her best to answer a few of them toward the end of the program. Also, today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending out a link to the video within the next week. Once again, we're glad you've joined us, and now let me introduce Brandy Hefner, who will take it from here. Brandy?
Hi, thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Just want to talk to you a little bit about making the jump to digital forms. Today, we'll review the process for digitizing your forms. We'll point out some ways to identify and avoid common mistakes, and we'll walk you through creating a digital form out of a paper form that we have. First, I want to talk to you a little bit about the tool that you'll be seeing today. It's compliance. It's an InEight tool. It's a forms creation and management tool. So at its core, you can create forms, collect data, and manage the data. It's a simple, streamlined way to collect the data. It's a centralized management of that data that you collect. And you can capture the data where the work is happening, either in the field via a mobile solution or in the office. So the journey that we go on to take a paper form into a digital form, we have 6 steps here, but it's less than what you're thinking it is. And I'll go through these steps here. So first one is you want to know the process. What is the form being used for? Once you know what the form is being used for, preparation is the key, and it makes it easier to create and build the best forms for the people out in the field. You'll fully understand the process that you're building as well. Number 2 is the system. What data do we already have? What data do we already capture? Such as date, time, who's filling out the form, possibly even the project that the form is being filled out upon. One of the top complaints that we get from users is having to fill in answers that they know the system already knows. So having that knowledge and not building those fields into your form is key. Also adding logic to the forms. So only gathering the data that you need to gather by the answers that the users are giving in the form is another way to help them focus on not giving erroneous answers to information they may not need to fill out. Number 3 is who is using the form? Who are they? Is the person spending a lot of time on the job site, out in the field? Do they need it on the mobile device? Do they need less questions, where less is more while they're doing the work? Are they in the office, back office accounting, where they're filling out a form and it leads into another form? Those are the kind of things that you want to look at when you're deciding who's going to use this form. All this stuff from mobile, from filling out another form that leads to another form, all this stuff is items that you can take advantage of when you're building digital forms. Number 4 is pretty important, reporting. I mean, if we're capturing all the data, we want to be able to get some stuff out, right? We don't want to have data as a hostage in a system. But when we talk about reporting and building these digital forms, we really need to think about the quality of the data. And so when you're looking at capturing information on a paper form, all of that's free text form, basically. Free text values. I have to type it in somewhere if I want it into a database. So free text kind of stuff. What we need to think about is what do we want now and in the future? And how you start collecting your answers on the forms matters. For example, if you're capturing people's names in a free text field, you think you may need to report on that one day, you should consider using a structured list of users. That way the names are consistently spelled for easy reporting. Sounds simple, sounds like a no-brainer, but we continuously see forms where we're asking for participants' names. You know, you get nicknames and things like that. It just, at the end of the day, when you're trying to report on that kind of stuff, it's hard. Starting with the end in mind is critical to success when you're digitizing these forms. Also, when we talk about reporting, we don't think about it often, but that's when our mandatory fields on the forms, when they're digital, become helpful. If you're needing the data for reporting, you want to make sure that you're making that field on the form mandatory so you don't have gaps in your reporting in your data. So using that mandatory option on questions is key. Next one is permissions. So when you're capturing data, especially around safety, quality, environment, and compliance, you probably have a little bit of sensitive data. Also, on the other side of permissions, you have people that don't need to see forms that they don't need to fill out. You know, it's that ease of use out in the field. Only give me access to what I need to be filling out in the field. But when we talk about that sensitive data, we need to be mindful of the information we're collecting, who we're allowing to collect it, and then also who we give permissions to on the reporting side. So it's just something to keep in mind, such as, you know, full names, birth date, medical records, all that kind of stuff. You need to choose a system when you're digitizing your forms that allows you to set permissions down to the question level, and definitely through reporting. Number 6 here, we say it's the last, but it's probably just the beginning. When you're talking about what does this form do, what process, like we talked about in number 1, what process is this for? We need to think about the workflow that the form is going to take. How many people need to see this data or touch this data? Does one person fill out one section and pass it to another, continue to fill out the same form? Does someone need to approve it? You need to look for a product that allows a combination of these with your form in the workflow to facilitate the processes where you're trying to capture the data most effectively. So much savings can be picked up by using digital workflows on digital forms. I can't even say enough. Time savings means cost savings, but really when we did a method analysis on digital forms, the workflow is where we were losing most of our time, equaling most of our money. And then when we put that all together into a digital form, we need to ask ourselves, why are we digitizing these forms? Why do we want to do this? Is it because our business is moving towards technology? Is it because we want to become more effective? Maybe it's because we want to use the data to be proactive and see where the issues are arising. Whatever the reason, knowing why you're digitizing your forms will ensure that you have the mindset to properly achieve the end goal. Choosing a system, and I can't say it enough, that has all the capabilities that you need to meet your goals through customization of forms and workflow is essential to your success. So I wanted to pop up the paper form, which we'll be digitizing today, just so you can kind of see what we're talking about. We got the typical paper form. Looks like we're sending it to a supervisor. We're getting some safety information on there, and you can see a filled out one. Hard to read. You can see half of the information is on the back of the sheet. When you have these paper forms like this, and you have to get them into your project records, you're probably scanning them in, so you don't have a lot of data in a database to be proactive with. But you're scanning them in, and the person scanning actually forgets to scan the back side of the sheet, so you forget that you had a back side of the sheet, and you don't have that information in your project records, which is not good to say the least. But you're missing half the information as well. And so lots of things come with these paper forms when you take a look at them and really think about what you're trying to get out of them, whether it be reporting, proactive, continuous improvement, or just records turnover and management. So what we'll do is we'll take that paper form and jump in and build that out in compliance. Just give me a second here to change screens. All right.
Okay, so let's jump into creating this form digitally. So I'll come into my system. I'll navigate to the settings of the compliance tool, which is the forms creation tool. I know by looking at this form that it's a safety form, so I'm going to stay in the safety module and I'm going to go over to my digital templates and create a new form. So by looking at the top of this form, reading through this form, you can tell that this is not just an incident reporting form, it's actually a safety incident reporting form. So I think I'm going to call it that. This will make it easier for the end users when they're looking for this form to fill out. I know it's incident, so I'm going to assign it to that category association. I do have users that are going to want to fill this out on the mobile device because they're going to be out in the field when these incidents happen. I do know that I want this available to my entire organization, so I'm going to make that happen. And when we're looking at, do we want the system to default the title or do we want the end user to put in the title, and the same with the date. So as I'm reading through the form, we are asking the user to put in the date. So we can just user define that. And it does not look like we're looking for them to give us a title. So we're going to let the system generate that title. We're going to create the form. I can also see by looking at the top of this form that it has a workflow as well. So we can get into that a little bit here. A couple of things about the form that I noticed when I was looking at the process that it facilitates. It's a safety incident report form, so I obviously know I'm going to be giving some of this information that I'm collecting here to a regulatory agency like OSHA, so I need to be cognizant of that. It looks like if I divide this form into sections, I probably have 3 sections, so I'm going to start with creating my sections. Click here. We'll have a type of incident section. We know we're going to have another section that is going to be called incident details, so we can have the event details and the description of the event. So we'll call it event details. And then we have another section that we will call submission, because we do have that requirement to send it to an operations supervisor or management. So we'll have a submission section. Okay, then we can start getting into building a form. So the first question on here is the type of the incident. On a paper form, they don't have the opportunity to control how many of those check boxes I choose. And it's probably not going to be several. So I'm going to make that a radio button list. So I'm going to pull that over. Type of incident, we'll leave it as radio buttons. And the types that we have are close call, first aid, incident, lost time injury, and observation. Save that. Next thing we want to know are the details of the person injured or involved. Please have the person filling the injured party out if possible. So we know that the solution is capturing the person filling it out. So I don't need to put the person completing the report, but we do need the injured party. Since I'm filling it out for OSHA, we probably only want to have one, or a regulatory agency, sorry, we probably only want to have one injured party per form being filled out. That way the reporting at the end of the day can match what I need it to be for the regulatory as well as for my organization, so I can count those incidents, because each person is going to count as an incident. So the process of this is going to be to capture one. So we can do injured party here. And then it's asking me for the equipment truck ID, but I don't want to have to see that if it's not there. It may confuse the worker. So we're going to put in a question that says, did this incident involve equipment? Real quick, we're going to say yes, no, and then we're going to add in text box here that is going to say equipment or truck ID. And for this one, we're going to say don't show this unless incident was a yes. So we'll hit save. And this one here, put a question mark on that. We'll have that there. Next question is the event details. So the date of the event, we have that here. Location, probably going to be a short location here as well. So we're going to put in a free text field, ask for location, and keep it short. Time of the event, we can pull over this, and I think it's better when we say date and time. So we'll just say time of the event. I think it's better when we ask those questions together. And then we have the witness. We'll get back to that because I feel like it's in the wrong place in the form when it's sitting there, and we probably want to ask a little bit more information. So we'll put in the description of events. Event here. And we have some text there that they probably don't need to see all the time, so we will have them be able to hide that. Unless they need it, which they can see on a hover when using the form if they need it. We need to pull this down into event details, and we need to pull this down into event details and the location as well. So it's really simple to move things around as you need them to be. On this description of events, it looks like on this form we're saying, hey, use the back of the sheet if you need to. And, you know, some of those issues using paper, if I'm using the back of the sheet, somebody forgot to copy the back of the sheet or scan it into the records, and so I lose half the information. But what we can do here is we can say we're going to have it long. That gives us 4,000 characters to fill for the end user to fill out. So that's got to be enough. They wouldn't be needing to use the end of the sheet there. Then we have, was the event caused by an unsafe act? So now we're kind of getting into why it happened. So we will let them explain that. But I think we'll ask in a better way. So I don't think we'll do text on that just yet. I think we'll throw in a list because that seems like something we're going to want to report on. So we're going to ask it a different way, and we're going to say, was the event or injury caused by one of the following? And we're probably on this going to use a drop down. We'll manage those, and it looks like they're asking an unsafe act, unsafe condition, okay, so we'll save those. We put it in a drop down because they might want to add more later. And then we'll say, please explain. So we get the best of both worlds here. They're going to give it to us by a drop-down value so we can report on it better. And then we'll get an explanation so we understand it better. And so on this explanation, we are not going to show that until they pick one of these. And that's just making the form more interactive with the user as well. So that it kind of prompts them to say, hey, we want some of this information here. Then we want to see some more information if it was lost time or first aid. So looking at that question, we probably don't want to show it if it was a close call, an incident, or an observation. So knowing that, when we come down here, we will stick in a couple of questions here. Type of injury sustained. Since I looked at this form, I know that when I report to a regulatory agency, this is one of the things. Talking to the people who are going to be looking at the reporting for this form, you know, they look through these forms and they find this out. They've said, hey, this is one of the things we want to know about. So instead of having them write this in, I went through and I created a list of causes and a list of types that we can use. So what we'll do is we'll add in another list, and we're going to call it type of injury sustained. It's a drop down. They can only do one at a time. And since I've already created the list, come over here and grab my types, copy those, throw them in here, and hit save. That have all my types there in alphabetical order already. And I don't need to tell the user to complete these only if it was a lost time injury or first aid, because they're only going to show that at that point. So if I come here and I say, hey, only show this when the type of incident is first aid, and only show this when the type of incident is a lost time. So that question is never going to pop up if they pick any of the other ones. So next one we have here is another list. This one is cause of lost time injury or first aid. So this is our cause of injury. Again, we'll make that a drop down. we'll manage that list, and I have that available right here because I did my homework. Throw that in there and save that. So we have that available right there. And then we need to know, was medical treatment necessary? Yes or no? And if yes, name the hospital or physician. So talking through this, I found out that they give medical treatment if it's a first aid on site. And they wanted to know that instead of just leaving the physician empty, because they didn't know if they had done it on site or if they just forgot to put in the physician's name or the hospital's name. So what I planned on doing here was putting in a question. Was medical treatment necessary? Make sure we spell that stuff right. We'll have a yes, no on that. And then we'll throw in another one that's going to be, was it delivered, was treatment. That's better. Treatment delivered on-site or off-site. And our options are going to be on-site and off-site. And we're actually going to put some logic on that to only show if medical treatment was necessary, so I don't have to see that all the time. And then the next question will be name of the hospital or physician. So we'll throw that in. Keep it short, and we're going to put logic on that saying, hey, don't show me this question either unless treatment was delivered off-site. Okay, and now we have a submission. We only need to return this form to the operation or manager, so it's a one-step workflow, but we can stick it here and submit to supervisor. But after submission, we're asking for the signature of that supervisor as well. So we need to pull over a signature here. Oops. And they also want to leave a comment. So we're going to throw over a comment section as well. And you know what? We're actually going to put that, we'll put it behind the signature there. So we'll say supervisor's signature. And we'll just say comments, if any, here. We'll actually give him a large space to do that. And we're not going to show these until it's been submitted. So put logic on both of these items here that says, hey, don't show up until I hit the button. And then we're actually going to allow this supervisor to close and complete the form. And we won't call it a form, we'll call it an incident report. So that's probably what they see. So it'll close upon selection. And we're going to change that status to complete. And we're going to put some logic on that one as well to not show up until the first button's been chosen. It's asking for the date, but the date is collected as he signs it. So we don't really need to know that. And then one thing we're missing is that witness statement. Also, when we talk about the description of the incident and how it happened, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So Can't really add that onto the paper form, but we can when we digitize it. So we're going to throw in a place for the end user to put any pictures. And we'll say attach any photos. There we go. One thing we want to do out of all this thing is we want to make sure that they give us this information and they give us this information, because those two are going to be necessary. The description and all that we can get, but as a digital form being reported, we absolutely want those two things for our reporting as well. So then we have the witness, and the witness really doesn't fit into our incident type or our event details anywhere like that. So before we send that over and we start talking about the submission, let's just throw another section in here and we'll call it witness. And we'll say add witness information if applicable. That way, again, they can get a little bit of information here. And since it's digital and we are using it for reporting, we're going to ask real quick. Do you know, let's say, were there any witnesses to this incident? Quick yes or no will suffice. And then we're just going to throw in some information. We just want the witness's name. And we're not going to show that unless there was a witness. So we'll come up here and find our question. And that is going to be shown when they say yes. Another thing we get from a witness is a witness statement, which would be really good to have attached to this form. So when I'm doing the investigation, it's right there. So we're going to add in the ability to get a witness statement. Available. And again, we don't want that to show up unless we did have a witness. So we're going to say yes on that. And I think that's the form. So as I review this again, type of incident, incident details. This kind of covers more than the type of incident. So this should probably be incident details. Event details, so what happened at the event? Any witnesses if I had some, and my workflow and submission. So that's the form in a nutshell. Didn't take me very long to build. I'm going to save that, and that's going to become available on the web or a mobile device. And they can start filling it out now, and I can start capturing that data.
Okay, so I'll switch back here. That was easy. Back on our paper form, just to show you and let you know, or let you see what we were using to build that. Once again, you know, a lot of free text fields, a lot of fields that people don't need to fill out at certain points in time, and no digital workflow into a digital form. And so when we're filling out the form that we just built, this is what it's going to look like to the end user and their ability to capture information. So just a little summary about what we talked about today. Data quality is huge when you're building the digital forms that you really don't get out of those paper forms. And so this is where digital excels and where you start getting that information to report on. Consistent data across the company. Now that we've built the safety incident reporting form, the entire company can use the form, and you're getting the same data consistently across the organization. And again, that proactive continuous improvement becomes a lot easier. Since it's all going into a database, easily retrievable for reporting and trending. An efficient opportunity, like we talked about before, for continuous improvement. You know, you can capture a whole bunch of forms. It's not just incident forms. It can be, hey, I want to take some personal time off, or hey, I have a meeting minutes that I need to capture, that kind of stuff, and just keep continuously improving. And digital workflows with the time and cost savings. Even capturing these forms and having these forms available as your projects start up is a time and cost savings. You build them once and you use them forever. So that's the summary. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Brandy. As Brandy mentioned, we do have a few minutes to take some questions, and we do have a couple, or at least one here in the queue. And the question to you, Brandy, is if you have all of your forms in a digital format, how does a user find the right form?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, because we can have, you know, lots and lots of forms out there. When you're building them digitally, the first thing that comes to mind with that question is that you'll always have the latest and greatest. So if you're out there and you're ISO certified or ISO compliant and you always want that greatest form as being the only one available, the digital form has that covered for you right off the bat. No capturing information on an old form that I have hanging out in my truck or on the floorboard or my snap pack. And then it's those permissions that we talked about in the beginning would be the second half how I'd answer that question. You know, giving people the permission to the forms that they need really drives them to the space that they need to be, and it makes it easy for them to find the forms that they need to fill out in the certain situations or events. So yeah, great question.
Okay, and here's one. How do users complete or submit digital forms if they are not connected to the internet?
So the compliance solution actually offers a mobile offline application. So use on your mobile phone or your tablet, where it can download, you know, 7 days, 14 days worth of information that you can take out on the field, because construction offices don't always have the best connection, and remote locations. It was one of our highly sought after features to have that available on the mobile device.
All righty, one more here, Brandy, for you. Can the forms be digitally packaged and sent to a project stakeholder?
Another great question, and a couple of things come to mind there. So as you're starting up your programs on your project, you're filling out your quality plans, your safety plans, your environmental plans, and you've created these forms that you're going to capture. You're telling the client or the customer that you're going to capture all this information on, and you need some blank forms to put in those plans. So we do have the opportunity for that as well. You create the forms, print them out, and put them in your package, turn them over for client acceptance. And then also on the back end of that question, because I'm not sure what angle it was being asked at, on the back end of that question, I've captured all the data from the field operations. Now I need to get that over into the project records to turn over for payment. And there is that opportunity as well. We capture them digitally. It creates a report package that sends it over and files it into the records repository. So a bunch of different ways that you can package up those forms. Great question. Thank you.
All right. Okay, and we have some time for maybe a couple more. Here's one. How are the results displayed, and can I customize how I see them?
Yes. Yeah, that's the number one key to compliance. We do have some forms that you can start with that have information. But the key is the customization of the tool, and it's really any form that you create. You decide what fields are being used and what those fields are asking and what those fields are capturing. So customizing really anything and everything, it's completely up to you. Of course, we do have some standard forms that you can start from as well.
Alrighty, and what InEight tools does compliance integrate with?
Currently, that is a great question, because you're capturing everything digitally. You want to use that source data and pass it around as much as you can. Currently, we have an integration where you can fill out a form that is an issue form that will go straight into the change product, which allows you to look at that change, discuss it with your client, and determine if it's going to be a potential change order, and ultimately a contract change order. So we do have that integration. We're currently working in the near term on an integration with Document, which is a documents and records repository. Has a lot of other features as well. I'm not the subject matter expert on that one, but it's a great tool, and it's part of that question, you know, can I package up my records and turn it over there? And lots of other integrations on the roadmap.
Okay, thanks, Brandy. We have time for one more. And by the way, thank you for all the questions. These are great. Last question for our session today is the captured data stored somewhere that data analysis can be performed on it later?
Yeah, yep. Another great question, because, you know, we don't want to hold that data hostage. So it is going into a database where it can be used with other tools, also in the reporting tools within InEight, report and dashboard. Power BI is our analytical reporter builder of choice, where you'll have self-serve opportunities to take that data and slice and dice it any way you need to. But on top of that, APIs are available to pull it into an existing, if your company has an existing data warehouse, you can take that data and pull it over there as well and use it. So yeah, great question, because it's all about the data.
And Brandy, great presentation. Thank you. So if you have any additional questions, please email them to webinars@InEight.com. Once again, that's webinars, plural, @InEight.com. To learn more about InEight as well as our field execution management solutions, visit InEight.com and click on the Request a Demo button. And don't forget to tune in to our next webinar on September 10th. It's from our Project Cost Management series, and it's titled Build Your Treasure Trove of Historic Data. Thanks for watching today. This concludes our webinar.